I'm Bob Brill. He's Erik Kramer. Welcome to Kramer and Brill, an NFL fantasy football podcast. Each week, my co-host and former Bears and Lions quarterback Erik Kramer and myself delve into your fantasy football choices, and hopefully we help you out a little bit on your way to victory. You can find out more by going to our website, kramerandbrill.com, or on my Bob Brill YouTube channel. Now, recapping how we did last week, we both liked Matt Ryan and 389 yards and 3 touchdowns and over 40 fantasy points, despite a pick six, was pretty awesome. We like Burrow, Mahomes, and Josh Allen. They all went off. Lamar Jackson did not. Kenny Pickett suffered a concussion. Mitch Trubisky came on to win it with a TD pass for Pittsburgh. Bailey Zappi in New England proved he was ready as well. Another rookie out there. You love Diggs, and his 10 catches for 148 to score was solid. And you like Jamar Chase. So I like Smith-Schuster and his best day with 5 catches, 132 and a score. But my Michael Pittman prediction was strong. 13 catches. We were winners with Kenneth Walker in Seattle. We both had him. We said to start him, and his 97 yards of the score made us look like professionals.
So, hey, we both like Breece Hall, too, as the only Jets player, and he proved he was worth it. 116 yards and a rushing touchdown for Jacksonville. I like Travis Etienne as a flex player, and he showed up with over 100 yards, 86 on the ground and 22 receiving. And I think we all knew it was just a matter of time before Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase hooked up both in the same game. And, of course, they both went off and had great games. Burrow going for 4 touchdowns, 3 in the air, 1 on the ground. And Chase putting up 10 catches for 132 yards and a couple touchdowns. So I think both those guys are off and running now. And then, and in Kansas City, I think we both saw, and all of us saw, Josh Allen's defining game so far in his young career, where
Amen to
he
that.
answered up big and basically put that game on his shoulders and carried across the goal line, hurdling a guy in the process during that game. And I think he just made a statement to me anyway that he's the best guy out there right now.
You know, I said Deion Jackson would be the man to start in Indy, and all he did, because Jonathan Taylor's out, all Jackson did was catch 10 passes and score a rushing TD with 42 yards rushing, and that meant about 28 fantasy points. Another player we like, as you mentioned, Breece Hall just went off, and he had a great day. Saquon Barkley, Kenyon Drake. We both like Saquon Barkley. I finally came around to your point of view. He had another good game, not a great game, but a good game. But Kenyon Drake, who with 119 came from out of nowhere. He's been cut by like 5 teams, it seems like, this year.
Right. I got it. The game for the game of the week for me, I believe, was Philly just annihilating the Cowboys, especially in that first half. The Cowboys came in tough, playing great defense, and it wasn't like anybody in Philly went off statistically. They just dominated that game. And obviously, when they had to have in the second half, put the lights out. And I think that, here in LA, the Chargers, to me, I went to the game last night, and Kenny Pickett is obviously still dealing with that rib injury because he's just not looking like the same guy, and which is going to make Austin Eckler look, he didn't have much of a game either statistically. And I think until both Pickett, not Pickett, but until Herbert's healthy and Keenan Allen's back, they're going to have a tough time moving the ball.
When it comes to injuries, as you mentioned, Kenny Pickett is in the concussion protocol. He may start. Mike Tomlin said if he's cleared, he'll start. Randall Cobb now out 2 to 4 weeks, and Green Bay has an ankle injury. And then Russell Wilson now is they announced this morning undergoing tests for MRI tests for what is considered a substantial injury.
Now, in the game last night, something looked off. I couldn't tell. It didn't look – I couldn't see if it was injury or not. But he's just not the same guy. I mean, he had a receiver just blow right by 2 defenders in double coverage. And the ball couldn't have been more than – it had to be at least 10 or 15 yards off target, wobbling. It just didn't look like him. And there's just – right now, I'm glad you mentioned that because there's no big plays being made in Denver by anybody.
Yeah, it's been a real surprise there. We all expected all the hype and all the fans, especially, how rabid Denver fans are. Everybody expected really big things, a change of scenery, huge contract, everything's going right, and flat. Everything's just flat. So maybe it is an injury on his part. We'll have to wait and see. But hopefully they get things turned around. Let's get right to the games. First of all, this is the second bye week, and the teams which are on bye this week that you'll have to bench those players are the Bills, so no Josh Allen, Rams, Vikings, and the Eagles all on buys this week. So that takes a lot of substantial players out of the mix this week. So that waiver wire is going to be really, really active. And there's a lot of guys, especially quarterbacks out there, who are on that waiver wire. Thursday night, Saints and Cardinals. Cardinals may have or do have Robbie Anderson via a trade. So keep an eye on that. I'm liking Ertz and Rondell Moore here, as both are getting heavy targets. Marquise Brown fighting an injury, so keep an eye on that one as well. Saints D is tough, but Kyler Murray, I think, is a play. Kamara is back, and I still like Taysom Hill, especially with Andy Dalton at quarterback, while Thomas and Olive are both facing injuries. So this could be a tough week for New Orleans.
Yeah, and like you, I like Kyler Murray because they're going to be behind a lot of games, this one included. And I think he's going to not only throw the ball well, but rush it for over 100 yards like he did last week. Arizona, though, I don't really see one guy other than him stepping up every week. So flipping to me over to the Saints, I think Kamara's a play every week, like he came up big last week. But again, other than him with the Saints, I don't see anybody stepping up as well.
Sunday, Browns and Ravens, two teams struggling to win, but I'll tell you, fantasy points abound here. Pretty much everyone here, but I wouldn't go crazy on Kenyon Drake. He ran for 119 yards coming out of nowhere last week, but he could just as easily get 20 yards this week and the next week be on waivers. So, he's just out there. I mean, if you want to take a chance on him because you got some bye guys, that's up to you, but I certainly wouldn't recommend it. And I do like Chubb, especially against the Ravens defense.
Yeah, for the Browns, not only do I like Chubb because he's a weekly starter, but I think Njoku's coming on lately. They just don't have the quarterback play yet, to me, out of Brissett to make a guy like Amari Cooper a consistent play also. Although I think Cooper's probably their best offensive weapon other than Chubb. As far as Baltimore goes, Lamar is sort of an inconsistent performer to me at this point in the season, but he loves Mark Andrews. And so, therefore, that guy, if you've got Mark Andrews, I'm assuming you're starting him anyway. But if you're not, that's the guy to play.
And likely is a guy, if you're in a dynasty league and you don't have him and he's available, I'd pick him up. Their backup tight end, he is getting some action and he looks really good. Buccaneers and Panthers. The Bucs had a bad week against Pittsburgh. And aside from Fournette, I'm not high on anyone on this team. Although Godwin did get 12 targets, he's worth a play. Panthers had their regular bad day. Reportedly, McCaffrey's on the trading block. And if he does go somewhere, believe it or not, Donta Foreman and Chuba Hubbard are options. If Anderson is traded, and that has to happen now, so Anderson's been traded, there is an elevation. I kind of like Terrace Marshall in that slot. He may not get immediate play, but he was a comer. He was a decent draft pick. I think Terrace Marshall, with Robbie Anderson gone, is a decent play at this point, or at least an option.
You dug deep on this one, and that's what we do. But I think you did a good job on this. But these are two, to me, bad defenses, which is hard to say. The Buccaneers on paper should be good, and so you'd think one of the offense would go off. But the problem is both offenses are bad.
Yeah.
And you mentioned McCaffrey being on the trading block. He'd be the only guy to start, but I don't even know if I'd start him right now. And then you've got Matt Rule, who just got fired. It's just both teams are in disarray. The Bucs, no more so than Tom Brady. And if it's me, and if this is a Las Vegas crap table we're sitting at, I'd take my chips and I'm gone.
Walk out, you got it. I know Brady is so frustrated. He was quoted as saying, "Yeah, I've had more F-bombs than touchdowns." So Falcons and Bengals, yeah. And on Brady's thing, he's got problems at home. I mean, it's pretty obvious.
Bigger problems in football, right?
Yeah, and that takes a lot out of you. And it's, we'll see what happens all throughout that whole thing. Falcons and Bengals. Falcons pulled out a surprise win with Caleb Huntley and Tyler Algier, both over 50 yards. Now, either one of them could be on the rise with Cordarrelle Patterson on the IR. Cincinnati finally got off the side, and Chase and Burrow, as you mentioned, looked good. I'd toss in T. Higgins in there as well.
And, the red-hot Falcons could actually win this game, but there's still no one to bank on fantasy-wise. For the Bengals, however, this team is back on offense, no doubt. Burrow, Chase, Mixon. You mentioned Tyler Higgins or T. Higgins. Tyler Boyd's another guy that you could fit in there if you had him.
Lions-Cowboys. Lions had an off week and was Swift out along with DJ Clark and Williamson. There are good options on Jamal Williams, Josh Reynolds, St. Brown. Even Craig Reynolds or Justin Jackson, those guys could all get some play this week. Cowboys, lay off the running back, stick to the D. I know Zeke had a little better week, but it all came in the second half. And, but so I'd stick to the D. I do like Dak to come back this week. CeeDee Lamb, I think, is solid as well.
I think you're right. I think if Dak Prescott does come back, it's going to take him a little while to get back on track. But I do think that Elliott is a play here because basically Jerry Jones has seen to it that he's going to get more carries. And I do like CeeDee Lamb as his option because you've got Dalton Schultz, who would normally be a good option, but he's out with a knee injury. And there's no other receiver out there right now performing like CeeDee Lamb. Other than that, though, I mean, I don't see anybody on the Lions because they're in disarray. And then, I just think fantasy-wise, this is a game probably going to go to the Cowboys win-wise, but I think fantasy-wise, too, they got the only players worth playing.
Giants, Jaguars. Giants came down to earth, but should rebound. And that means Barkley as well as Wan'Dale Robinson and Marcus Johnson with an edge toward Richie James at wideout. Jags Travis Etienne is solid to start at running back. And I like James Robinson here as well, but really only as a flex, not as an RB1 or 2.
Not a lot of great options for either team here. The Giants are now winning, of course. And so, but they're having to do it in unusual ways, not great statistically by anybody other than Barkley, who you mentioned earlier. Like again, we're talking about if your normal quarterback starting guys want to be one of those 4 this week that has a bye, Allen, Stafford, Cousin, or Hurts. Of all people, Daniel Jones is starting to quietly put together a solid season. He's not making mistakes. If you're looking for a guy to start because one of those other guys are out, if you want 200 yards passing, a couple of touchdowns, either rushing or passing, Daniel Jones could be a good start for you.
And he's out there in a lot of leagues. He's available, so that would be an excellent pickup. Colton.
The other guy I'd mention here would be Etienne. To me, he's a solid flex guy. He rushes the ball well, receives it well, and I think he could be a good option for you.
Yeah, I think he is definitely on the rise. Colts and Titans. Colts, you must start Pittman, but keep an eye on Deion Jackson. Deion Jackson is questionable early in the week. And remember, his 28 fantasy points came on 10 catches on 10 targets for the most part. He only had 42 yards rushing. Now, I like him. I like him a lot. But, don't be surprised if he ends up with 5 fantasy points this week. I also like Jelani Woods at tight end. Titans coming off a rested bye week, so stick to all the usual suspects. And announced today, tight end Delaney Walker, Pro Bowler, announced he's retiring this week. He's done.
Well, to me, with the Colts, I'd use caution. I think, remember, they got in a shootout with Jacksonville, who is on the rise, but not really what I'd call a high-caliber team just yet. The Titans, though, who previously got demoed by the Bills, did have an off week, and so they rested up, cleaned up, hopefully, and I think they'll be a rejuvenated team. They're at home this week. As for the Titans, for me, it's really Derrick Henry, and that's about it for the Titans fantasy-wise.
Packers and Commanders. Tanyan and Lazard look good with 21 targets between them the last week. And against Washington, it should be more of the same. A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones seem to be splitting the running back duties. Brian Robinson looks like he's taken over for Gibson. So if he's the flavor of the month, he is definitely worth a pickup and at least a flex. I mean, his story is really great. The guy gets shot. Now he's back in the NFL carrying the ball as a starting running back. With Wentz out, Tyler Heineke has been announced he's going to start. So he's worth a look, but I wouldn't say a big one. He's been around like forever. He will start, and that has been announced by the coach.
And I think this is the game. The Packers now, they've been on the slide these last couple of weeks. This is the game I think their season takes a big pivot. Rodgers gets back on track. Lazard and Tunyon, who you just mentioned, I think are going to step up. And so I'd start Rodgers. As far as Washington goes, again, I'd take whatever chips I had on the table. They're now off and in my pocket.
Jets and Broncos. Breece Hall, you mentioned for the Jets, solid RB1 now. Corey Davis might be a play here. Denver, Russell Wilson, as we mentioned, significant injuries being evaluated. So that means you're going to have to look at his backup. And I'm not even sure who the backup is in Denver these days.
Doesn't really matter because they're going to face a very good Jets defense. So to me, there's not one Bronco player with or without Russell Wilson that I'd play. And again, as we've talked about, offensively for the Jets, Breece Hall, that's their guy.
Texas Raiders, Houston coming off a bye. So I do like Damian Pierce at running back, and I'm good with Davis Mills. Raiders in the same situation, so I like Jacobs, Renfro, and Adams. But Carr, it's just been really inconsistent. Maybe this is the week he needed a week off, put it all together, and he gets reconfined and focused and everything. And maybe that's what happens this week. His numbers haven't been bad, but just inconsistent.
I agree with you, and I think to me, if you're talking about the Texans, really Davis Mills, I don't hate to step on your butts here, but he's kind of a JV quarterback trying to look the part, whereas Damian Pierce is the part, looks the part. He's the guy to bank on to me in Houston. With the Raiders, though, they're kind of an enigma, right? I mean, they show up for a quarter or two, and then they take the rest of the game off. But to me, the solid guys there to play are Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs.
Seahawks and Chargers in Seattle. Kenneth Walker was everything we said he would be. 97 yards and a touch, had a pair of catches. Stick with him. Lockett is good as well, and DK Metcalf was going after 2 weeks. He was on the rise. He just had an off week. I still find it hard to bench him. I'd give him another good week and see what happens with Geno Smith out there. So have to wait and see. But if you have to play him, why not?
I agree with you. I think play him. And I think Geno Smith is really the guy that is making me believe that this team is got some players on it. And he's delivering the ball well. He's making good, accurate throws and good decisions. And, I think that really, you mentioned Walker, Lockett, Metcalf. I think that brings all of them onto the table. If I've got any of those three guys, I'm starting.
We're looking at Chiefs Niners, a couple of high-powered teams there, especially after a loss. I'm solid on Smith Schuster, Kelsey, and Mahomes. Atlanta shut down Jeff Wilson last week, and that allowed the trio of Elliott, Kittle, and Samuel to really shine. I think, again, if you find another running back available, you might give Wilson a week off or move him to flex, but, because it's a tough Kansas City defense out there. So, but, Jeff Wilson is at best an RB2 this week.
Yeah, I think so. And I think for KC, the other guy I consider is McCole Hardman, because with Travis Kelce gone, I think one of the best things Patrick Mahomes has done so far has been able to spread the ball around. And McCole Hardman last week came out of that game. He was their third leading receiver after Smith Schuster, who hasn't really done much until that game, Kelce. And then there's McCole Hardman with 42 yards receiving and a touchdown. So they're looking for ways to get him the ball as well. And for me, hard to go with anybody offensively with the Niners because there really is nobody that stands out, I would say, other than Jeff Wilson, who they've proven they can run the ball against anybody, the Niners. And to me, that means Jeff Wilson.
Steelers and Dolphins, too many injuries here for the Steelers. Pickett more than half the defense and Freiermuth. They're all injured this last week. Interesting point. Tomlin announced Pickett will start if he's cleared to play. Now, if Pickett starts, you should start George Pickens. But if Trubisky starts, I have no problem with Claypool at wideout. It just seems that Trubisky loves Claypool and Pickett loves Pickens. It's just kind of working out that way. Najee Harris still not getting going, so I'm not even recommending him as a start. In Miami, it's Waddle, Green, and Mostert again.
Since you are the Steelers resident expert, I'll defer everything to you, which I agree with. Miami, though, I'm not sure how you overlook Tyreek Hill because this guy is still putting up numbers again, along with Waddle and Mostert. So I think all three of those guys are potential starts.
Monday night, Bears and Patriots. Bailey Zappi over 300 yards, so why not? I like Stevenson and Hunter Henry. And on the Bears, I like Mooney and Montgomery, but like you're the expert on the Bears here, I defer to you.
Well, okay, so here we go. The Patriots and Bill Belichick have made two offenses these last 2 weeks, meaning the Lions and the Browns look very bad. And so I'm not sure, I'd start anybody in Chicago all year. I don't care who they're playing. And they've been consistently bad, and that's without facing the Patriots. So nobody I'm starting with the Bears. As for the Patriots, in New England, they want to run Bailey Zappi for president, guaranteed. And this guy is legit. And so I think Ramondre Stevenson, who you love and I love too, I think that brings him into the play. Receiver-wise, I was high on Jacoby Myers, but I don't think anybody in that receiving group, whether it be tight end or receiver, has really stood out week to week. And so I think Bailey Zappi might be a play if you don't have an early quarterback, but maybe other than Ramondre Stevenson, I don't think the Patriots offensively do have a starter.
Interesting thing is here, if Bailey Zappi pulls a Cooper Rush, okay, and wins, of course, Dak's coming back. They owe him money. What happens when Mac Jones comes back? That's going to be the interesting thing.
I don't think Mac Jones has done enough to me to
Not yet.
oversee
He certainly
Bailey
hasn't.
Zappi.
He certainly was not at this point in his career. He wasn't worth my second round pick last year. So, and there you have it. Another edition of Kramer and Brill. Find out more by going to our website, kramerandbrill.com, or on my Bob Brill YouTube channel from my friend and colleague, Erik Kramer. I'm Bob Brill, and we'll see you next time.